Hi guys, Darkovika here, and we have ourselves a lovely little vlog today. Last week, which was a week in January, for those who may or may not be watching this in the distant future, I was unable to upload because I had some editing problems. It's okay, it wasn't the vampire series, which is good because that has like a single save slot. I was going to upload something else, and then I decided that I hated the entire video, so nope, that's not happening. Unfortunately, right now, I have a very particular workload that is supposed to be temporary. Capitalization on supposed to be. I just don't know how temporary it is, and it is a workload that makes it very difficult for me to do a lot of stuff, mainly because I have very, very long work days now. I'm not complaining or anything. I don't like talking about my work life on my YouTube channel. I don't like these things to mesh, so, you know, just know things are a little different for me right now at work. I have a heavier workload and different hours, and this is heavily affecting my energy when it comes to recording these. Now, in case you're watching this in the distant future, today is January something in 2020. It's like January 10th or something. 12th. That was close. It is January 12th in 2020, and I am a sleepy human being. During the week, I can't record. It's just not gonna happen. So anyways, let's move on with the subject of this video, which is a vlog, and that is the status of my channel, which I have crossed off. That's things that my lovely schedule that I had set up that was working out so great for me is probably going to go out the window. I want to keep uploading, so I'm going to fight that lethargy and the lack of a schedule as much as I can, so please be patient with me as always. I am sorry. Adulthood sucks. When you do YouTube full-time, it's a little easier to stick to schedules, but when you have a life that has a very unpredictable job, not so much. But that said, I also kind of wanted to talk about some other stuff that I'm working on, like, you know, the things that I've said that I've been doing throughout the year. Obviously last year was all about my wedding and putting that together, and that worked out wonderfully. There will be a video with, you know, photos and videos and stuff of my wedding that I will eventually post. I don't have that currently, but we have like 2,000 photos, so there's a lot to go through. It was a wonderful experience, obviously, but it did take up my entire year, so I'm still kind of recovering from that lack of a schedule. I do still want to return to the videos where I was focusing on game design and game development and potentially some writing stuff and story ideas and how to come up with that kind of thing. And I also am still working on writing a book, which obviously I have talked about quite a bit on my channel. For those of you who are familiar with this, for those of you who are not, I'm trying to write a book. It's a thing that is happening that has not yet come to fruition. I have been working technically towards writing and publishing a book for years. I do it in my free time, of which there is very little. So, as you can imagine, it takes a while. I've also been dealing with a lot of harsh criticism from the only person who can criticize my work, which is me. And I'm dealing a lot with understanding what it means to put something out there. The thing that I'm struggling with the most is often I become so attached to my work that I am terrified to share it. And of course, all creatives deal with this, where you become very attached to your work and you know that people will not like it. There will be people who do not like your work, and that is simply a fact. It is a truth of life. With the millions of people that we have on this planet, it's bound to be. There are going to be people who find fault through your work, and that is just simply because we as people cannot be perfect. It is impossible. So that said, I am struggling to accept the fact that no matter what I write, it will not be perfect, and that is okay, and it does not need to be perfect, and it is okay if someone else's work sounds better than mine, especially in the rough draft phase where everything sounds like garbage no matter who you are. That's just how rough drafts work. Unless you have been writing for like 50 years, in which case you're probably doing a lot better than me. Alas, I have not been writing for 50 years, or publishing even for 50 years, so that's not a thing. But I also wanted to talk about, because I've been getting a lot into booktubers. There's a word for it, I'm still learning. And I recently just absolutely, like, keeled over watching a couple of YouTubers whose usernames I have sadly forgotten. I hate everything. Why? They did reviews on Onision's books, which are not good, but I won't go into that because I'm not reviewing them. And I had such a blast watching those videos. I just had them going, and they made life so much better. Also, I got a haircut. I forgot to mention that. I'm very happy with it. Brent likes my haircut too. I like my haircut. And I enjoyed that a lot. So I've actually been watching a lot of BookTube recently with like people reviewing stuff and people going over their books, and I don't know, it's a very fun place to be. And I thought, well, it would be fun to share some of my books with you guys, of which I have a great many. I have an obsession with books. Brent would agree. I have too many books, but that's besides the point. So some of the books that I wanted to share that I got recently that I'm very excited about, recently being a very broad term. One of them, which I could not actually find my physical copy, so I cannot hold it up, so just pretend that there's a copy of it here. Stephen King's On Writing. I'm not like a totally huge fan of Stephen King. The one work of his that I've read that I enjoyed up until the end is Cell. That is actually, I really liked that book, and I think I read it in 2 days, but when I reached the end of it, I threw it across the room. I was so angry. And then I remember standing there and going, I get it now. I get why people say it. So that was very funny, but I really enjoy Stephen King, and I mean, obviously I'm not like a diehard. I have not read all of his works. I currently have Salem's Lot, which I have not finished. I do need to get back to that in my spare time, of which I have very little, but I got the book On Writing because someone had suggested it, and it is effectively one of those books that gives you advice on how to be a writer. And I really enjoyed it because it was not just how to be a writer. It was also his like autobiography. Yeah, I think that's the correct one. I get them mixed up. Sort of. It was like a collection of memories. And when you read it, you understand why he is sharing it with you. Because if you have read even one of his books or even seen any of the movies that are based off of his books, you will understand where all of it comes from. It comes from his childhood. It comes from his life. When you read about these memories, you instantly see the snippets of his books in his life. And it's very, very interesting. And also, I mean, reading about his life and his creative process and being a person and a human being was exceptionally inspiring and really just did a number on my insecurities and my fears and my anxiety, of which I have also been struggling with. That hasn't gone away, unfortunately. I found out that might be genetic, so that's fun. But I will say that reading it has really just, I mean, like, it helped so much with my insecurities. Even just the first half of it was so good. I cried a lot through it. It's very easy for me to cry. I just say that right now. But reading it was just so powerful, like so amazing. But also like the way he writes just makes it all seem very simple. Like it's just him telling you things. It's him telling you these events in his life. Just like, yeah, this happened and this happened, I guess. And, this also happened. And then you're just like blown away. And he's like, yeah, and then this happened. And I got like $400,000 for Carrie, and yeah, my legs gave out and stuff, and you're just like, oh my god, and you just start crying because you're me. But yeah, that's one book that I got that I can't show you the physical of because I can't find it at the moment. But it was a really good one. I really liked it, and I 100% suggest it. And then, okay, so here's another one that I got recently. These are going to be all over the place. These are not all, like, writing tips or anything. I really did not, you know what, maybe I'll put the two that are related to what I just said. I got these two books. I got this one solely on the suggestion of Stephen King. It is very thin. It is literally, it's called The Elements of Style. It's like the most concise collection of like tips, tricks, and things that you should know as a writer. And I really like it. I keep stopping, so I'm still early on in the beginning, but like, It goes over things like literally like commas, how to write, how to phrase, how to, like that kind of thing. And I really appreciated that. And then I went on a limb and I got this as well, Perfect English Grammar, because it's not that I believe that these are things that should constantly be followed, but something that I teach in my music lessons, like for violin and cello, is that you learn the rules to intelligently break them. Like, here's an example, because I can't necessarily give an example with writing because I'm not as much of a, I don't want to say professional, but I'm not as advanced with writing as I am with music. On the violin, you early on in the instrument, you teach your students always have all of your fingers down. If you're playing the third finger on the violin, you always have the first two down as well. Later on in music, you find that really is not something that you can keep doing. Oh, why are you listening for me? The Googs, the Google Home, is listening to me for some reason. Stop it. Oh well. It's not going to give anything interesting, so whatever. In music, you learn that because it is a technique that teaches you the right shape of your fingers. It teaches you a lot of things that help you down the line. However, you do not actually need to keep all of your fingers down, and in later pieces, you're often doing things like that, that. It just, whatever you need to do in order to get through the piece. But you have built that framework in order to intelligently or even just subconsciously decide when you need to have all fingers down and when you don't. And you're also building the shape of your hand so that you are in tune even when your fingers are not down. It's the same thing for writing. You learn those rules and you learn those things in order to know when to intelligently break them. And that's the point. That's why I kind of decided to go back to basics and get some good stuff on style. Now for the non educational books. One of the ones I got, which has sadly been consumed by Sam, because for whatever this book is made out of, he is very interested in it. He wants it. He managed to get a hold of it and drag it under a table where I couldn't see him, and he nommed on it for a bit. It is a book on mermaids. I think there's another one for unicorns, and I think there's a pink one for fairies. I actually really enjoy this. It is surprisingly difficult to come across books on mermaid legends. This is important for my current work in progress. I have like 3 work in progresses, by the way. If you are following anything that I have ever said on any of my work in progresses, you'll be very confused because there are several of them, and they're all different from each other, so don't try to connect them all into one story. But yeah, and the current one that I have, I have mermaids in it, and I wanted to base them obviously off of realistic myths. Turns out that if you look up books on mermaids, 90% of what you're going to get is Disney. The other 8% is going to be like books that are just made for children, and then 2% will be books like this, where it's like legends and mythology and stuff. I have no doubt that they exist, but you have to have a very definitive search term to find these books. Like, you have to narrow that down hard, because mermaids, unfortunately, are very much like a childish thing for some reason, even though the original myths are actually quite brutal. Now it's almost entirely a thing for that is typically aimed at an audience of young girls. So that's something that I have had difficulties with. But I actually really liked the way that this was written and formed, because it gave me a lot of stuff to like look into. I haven't even finished it still, because I have a problem where I get inspired and then I immediately put the thing down that inspired me, and then I go off to go create things, and it means I don't finish anything. And my, hang on, before I do that book, I also found this, and I was actually going to look up information on this. It's also very small. It's a collection of essays. Okay, here we go. It was written technically in the late 17th century by a Scottish minister. And he had his own flock. It was a very small village, but he was a very peculiar and very unique priest in that he took very seriously the beliefs of the people around him. So elves, fairies, fauns, all of that. He believed that they were real with his people. But instead of condemning them for these faiths and also condemning these beliefs, he believed in both. He was like a full-hearted 100% believer in Catholicism, but also that this was a part of the world as well, that it had a place in Catholicism. The elves and fairies and fauns and all of that it had a place. And so he would go and listen to the stories of his people, and he collected all of them. And I mean, there was a person later on who found these texts and wrote like an introduction or something. There is very little that I have actually found on this historically that I can like corroborate. Obviously, all of this is stuff that I have read about this on the internet, which should always be taken with a grain of salt. But I mean, it's really interesting because the introduction talks about this priest and says that he was like a man of unusual high, like, what's the word I'm looking for? He was a very good person. In many of his examples, he would talk about how he examined a woman, but only when he had a person in presence who could corroborate that everything he did was not untoward, and it was very, classy, and he was not being forward with the woman. You know what I'm talking about. I don't know why I'm phrasing this in such a weird, old-fashioned way, but you get what I mean. And so it was very unusual at the time, even though priests were required to have someone with them. They did not always. So the person in the introduction went on to say that this priest was a man seemingly of very high caliber. That's kind of what I wanted to say. It's a bit difficult to read because it was written in the 17th century. So a lot of this is kind of like you're working around stuff that's a bit difficult. Thankfully, not all of it is written in the original spelling, or else no one would ever be able to read it, because it is Old English. But yeah, I mean, like, it's very cool. Like, it's this dude who's basically collecting a definitive collection of stories about all of these creatures as the people of the time understood them. So if you want legends straight from the people, that's basically this. Even though it's quite small, it was just his findings in his collection. For my last entry in this of books that I want to show you that have absolutely no theme with each other whatsoever, I got this book. It's called The Lesser Key of Solomon. This one is a lot harder to explain. This one is a collection of grimoires over the course of history. One of these grimoires, I think they calculated that it was written in like the 16th century. Yes? Yes. Maybe. The other could be traced back to like literally the 12th century and potentially further beyond, but spread orally. It is a collection. It's basically a book. Okay, here we go. Detailing the ceremonial art of commanding spirits, both good and evil. So, read at your own risk and all that stuff, depending on how superstitious you are. But like, it's also known as Lemegeton Clavicula Salomonis, and what it is basically it's based off of Solomon in the Bible, and supposedly the spirits that he summoned to help him build his structure or statue, I forget what it was. As per usual, once I have started recording, my nose is instantly itchy, and I don't understand why. I think it's a twitch now. But I mean, like, this is the spooky stuff, okay? Like, I got it because I thought it was just the most interesting thing I've ever read about, and I am happy to own it, but boy, is it spooks. It talks about demons, it talks about angels, it talks about the 20 beneficial spirits that govern the zodiac. Okay, so here's one of the things that's interesting about the Lesser Key of Solomon. Depending on the copy that you get, you may either have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, five grimoires. There we go. That's the best word I can use to describe these. I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate, that these are grimoires. I'm pretty sure that they are. You may either get 5 grimoires or 4, because some people do not actually include the Ars Notoria in the Lesser Key of Solomon. They believe that it was a separate work that was not meant to be included with these, but some of them still include all of them. And then, I mean, like, notable people who, like, messed with this is, the strangeness of their person. What's the word I'm looking for? Why am I like this? Their strangeness notwithstanding, they are, like, Aleister Crowley is a person who messed with this and said that he summoned demons from this successfully, which is impressive because one of the things that it points out is that a lot of these are from texts so old, which the originals do still exist, and you can find them, I think, in the British Museum. I forget which one off the top of my head. It's in here. I just don't want to go looking for it. And they're very old, and a lot of the symbols and a lot of the words are very difficult to translate just because of how old they are and how faded they are. So people are kind of like different people who have tried to translate these texts have done it in different ways. So people like Aleister Crowley were trying to add their own interpretations to the way that we translate these. There is a whole community, like a whole little tiny community around the Lesser Key of Solomon. It's fascinating. There's also, I think, just the Key of Solomon, which I don't know much about, so I can't say anything about that. But I thought that was really interesting, and so now I own it. Demons. So yeah, there you go. Each of them have their different levels, like the Gosha, assuming I have said that correctly, the Goetia. I'm assuming it's Gosha. The ritual invocation of evil spirits and Solomon's devices for binding them. Y'all, summon safely, you know? Don't go summoning demons, please. It's not a good idea. All right, cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know that was a really weird vlog, excuse me. I know this was a really, this was a bizarre vlog. I know. But I thought I wanted to share that with you. I've got so many books. I just wanted to share, y'all. And I hope you enjoyed. And hopefully things get back to normal soon. I'm expecting the week that this goes up to be a little hectic, so have mercy. Pray for my soul. Send me good feels, good vibes. All of the energy. Send it. I'm a tired human being. My eyes are really red. I'm not sure why. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.